Life After Bay, the podcast for all life and love forms of Arcadia Bay and beyond. I'm your host Martin, as known as It's Me, Maxine. Yes, I'm back, and it took me a really long time. I wanted so badly to interview Cristina Hawke, also formerly known as Riley Hawke, but only in February I was able to do it when I felt more stable and confident. And from there it took me until April, and I'm glad that Cristina was so patient. She's a really fascinating long-time artist, songwriter, singer and musician who also made a lot of Life is Strange inspired fan music and art. Unfortunately, at the time of the interview, she couldn't talk about her newest contribution, the wonderful song Ghost, for the project The Hope Circle from the Wonder Twins. I put the link in the show notes. This time I also added some news at the end of the podcast. Kudos again to Cristina for letting me use her Life is Strange inspired music for the podcast, Muke R3 for the podcast cover, and Olya Rue for the old cover. Oh, and by the way, if you like my personal profile pic on Twitter or the Punk Max banner from the YouTube channel of the podcast, they are from Nico, as known as Nikova, who I interviewed in episode 30. Please give them some love. So without further ado, now to the interview with Cristina. Yeah, this time I have a special guest. I have Cristina Hawke in my podcast, and yeah, she's famous for her Life is Strange inspired fan music. You also hear in the introduction and in my podcast. And yeah, welcome her warmly to the podcast, and please introduce yourself.
Hi, yeah, thank you for having me. I'm Cristina Hawke. I've been making music for probably about 15 years or so, starting kind of right as I was graduating high school. And I've always been an artist. I've always been really interested in art, but music, I think, is the one that I've really stuck with the most over the years. In my professional life, I'm a software engineer. I've been doing that for a while as well. I live in Cleveland, Ohio, which is also where I grew up. But I was kind of around the country a little bit in between. And yeah, I obviously like music. I've been into calisthenics. I'm really into self-help and kind of, personal development, self-improvement, that kind of thing. Yeah, that's an introduction. Yeah,
okay. Yeah, it's interesting that you're a software engineer. I think I heard it before, but nice to hear. But I'm working the IT, but I'm not a software engineer, but yeah, nice to hear. So totally different from what you do as a hobby, or not hobby, but semi-professional as a musician, I think.
Yeah, they're very different. And I think that I'm a lot more passionate about art and music, but I also really like programming. Like I also have this really pragmatic, systematic, analytical side of me that really feels good to be able to use as well.
Maybe we have a little bit. I have a question about one of your projects. Yeah, we can come to it later. Okay. Obviously, it's all about Life is Strange in this podcast. So I think for you, it may be a little bit longer ago that you played it, or
it was a while ago.
That's absolutely okay. Yeah, the first question as always, is how and when you get into the video game franchise of Life is Strange.
Yeah, so I played it after the whole game had come out. I think I played it it was like early 2016 that I played it. And so like a thing about me is that I will watch and consume any kind of like lesbian sort of media that I find. And so watching the initial trailer, I just immediately started shipping Pricefield, and I was like, I'm going to play this game. And so that's how I got into it, just that.
Okay. Yeah, nice. Yeah, and of course, the next question is, what was so special about it for you?
So like I said, Pricefield was special about it to me. And I think, especially just when I grew up, there was like there was like maybe a little bit, but there wasn't really any representation for, female loving kind of relationships. So that's to this day is just always special to me. So the relationship between Max and Chloe was a big thing. I think also though that game, like, it has something really special about it that I don't know if it's that easy to put your finger on. Because I know like people have commented, and they did the remaster, and I didn't play the remaster, but I've heard people comment that like even things like going back and like they make the animations, you know, objectively better. They make certain things objectively better, but it's like it also like loses something. Like there was just something really special about that game. And I think part of it too for me was how real it was. I mean, they dealt with like really heavy issues, and that really surprised me while I was playing it. And I think that games have moved a little bit more in that direction, or there are other examples of games that kind of go there with things. But Life is Strange was one of the first that I had played that was so just boldly willing to delve into these really heavy emotional issues. And I love really heavy emotional issues. So I think, yeah, those were a couple things that made it special.
Yeah, of course. I think for everyone it's different, but yeah, there are some parts, I think, with Kate and some other parts that was also very surprising for me, and I think for a lot of other people. And yeah, it was emotionally very.
And Kate survived. Kate survived in my playthrough. Did Kate survive in your playthrough?
Yeah, yes. I had luck.
So I can't even imagine, like, if that had gone a different way, you know, even earlier, it would have been like, oh my gosh, they really took it there.
When I was watching Twitch, it was a long time ago, but after I got into the fandom, I watched Twitch playthroughs of Life is Strange and people who done it the first time. And I watching them, in real time, that when Kate jumped, and some of them were really, we had to build them up and say, and it was really hard for them. So I can only imagine. I think I heard of some people just switching off the console mid play. Just no. I had to start from the beginning. So I think it's very it's a hard topic. Yeah. Yeah, as I said, I asked for questions from fans to you. So I think I have two questions. One question is just fits into this part of the questionnaire. So I think it's Vertizer on Mastodon also asked you the question. They asked, in what ways did Life is Strange change your life?
Yeah, so I think like the game definitely had a powerful impact on me. Especially right after I played it, it had a powerful kind of emotional impact on me. I think though that it was the community that, you know, if I'm going to say anything changed my life, it was definitely the community more so than the game itself, because like right after I finished the game, because of the heavy emotional impact. So I'll say, I don't know if this is a later question or not, but Bay or Bay, like it's in speech, it's harder to tell. Anyway, I chose the ending where you save Arcadia Bay. And I was devastated for days. Like I was like, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I felt horrible. And so kind of writing a song and kind of making my first video for I Still Do was my way of kind of processing that and working through that. And that video for me, like, you know, like I said, I've been making music, you know, for a really long time. And I've had a YouTube channel for a really long time as well. But I'd never gotten such a positive reception for a video before, and it really like inspired and motivated me to pursue music in a more serious way than I had in the past. And so that was life-changing in a sense, definitely for kind of my music. Yeah,
I think we will come later to the special video, but okay. As you said, you got into the fandom, I think, when you made that video, or when did you get into the fandom?
Yeah, I think I'm trying to remember because I don't know how aware I was of like fandoms in general. It's possible that Life is Strange was kind of one of the very first fandoms of any kind that I kind of got into, and so discovering discovering that, you know, you can make these like fan-made videos. I think that was something I discovered that may have inspired me to do what I did with I Still Do. I got into reading fan fiction, and more music. Like I discovered like Hawke, and realized, there are other people making fan music, and it was just kind of this whole new like world that I didn't know about, and it was right about at that time when I released I Still Do.
Yeah, cool. It's also my first fandom, I had to admit. And I think the question will come later, but I totally got into the fan fictions. I never thought fan fiction would interest me, but it's still fascinating me.
Some really good ones, and I find that it, and after Life is Strange, like I know that when I was in high school, I read some Harry Potter fan fiction. Like I know that that's a thing, but I think that since then, I think Life is Strange was really when I kind of rediscovered fan fiction. And now, if I get into like a new ship or something like that, I will always go and find a few like really great fanfics to read. So it's kind of stuck with me in that sense.
Yeah, cool. When you think about the fandom as a whole, so what do you like the most about the fandom?
I think it's hard to compare. I think like I haven't been as involved in other fandoms as I have been in this one, so it's a bit hard to say what might be special about this fandom in particular compared to other ones. But I definitely have found it to be very very friendly overall, and maybe most of all the dedication. I mean, I think this podcast is an example. It's been years since this game came out, and there's still so much love and dedication and passion for this game, and I think it deserves it. It's a wonderful game, and there's the Life is Strange fans. I know they've done that website at least a couple of times. There's a whole community. Like there's really a lot of effort that has gone into creating the fandom and individual artists and kind of contributors in the fandom, putting out so much, really quality content. It's like a very cool sort of fandom in that sense.
Yeah, I know what you mean. So I think I have enough artists for the next years to come. So I'm also amazed about. There are also, I think, with True Colors now, obviously, but there are a lot of people who rediscover then Life is Strange, the episode 1 or the first Life is Strange, for the first time, and I think there will. Yeah, it's amazing. I think it's almost not 10 years, but I think 8 years now, and it's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it holds up. I think it holds up. I think people playing it today for the first time, it'll be just as special as it was. Some games don't age well. I think Life is Strange. I don't know. I guess you can't necessarily tell, but it seems like the kind of game that ages really well.
Yeah, we have to see, but I think that's true. Yeah. So you said you were on the Life is Strange fans platform, I think. So I think you are not active on Twitter, but I think of course you're active on YouTube. So what are the platforms you usually get around or get new input from?
Yeah, so I will. I don't really use social media that much, except for I guess YouTube when I post. That's probably the main one where I will post things. As far as sort of like lurking within fandoms, I'll kind of go all over the place. Like if I'm interested in some like a new show that I'm into or something, I'll kind of go on Twitter and look at certain hashtags, or Tumblr and look at certain hashtags, or mostly that, and YouTube. I really like watching kind of fan made videos and edits and those kinds of things, and fan fiction. So those are probably the main things that I look into.
Yeah, I totally understand that you are not using much social media. It's the same for me. So mostly I'm overwhelmed, or it's or the wrong kind of person on that. So you said you mostly like I think fan fictions and fan art, and what about other things? Like I also liked I like cosplay, but what are your favorites?
Yeah, I think fan fiction, fan like videos, different edits, are great. Cosplay, I think, is so cool. Like, I'm very impressed by people that do cosplay. I kind of dipped my toes into that a little bit with my music video
Yeah.
for Fragile Reality,
Hmm.
but mostly just like in awe of people who do cosplay. I think that's so cool.
Yeah, I remember the video. Yeah. Of course, most of the people and mostly myself know you for your Life is Strange inspired music and,
Hmm.
of course, your original music. So I have a question from Malina, as known as Have a Seat Pete. She was my last guest on the podcast.
Hmm.
She wrote a little note. I will quote it here. Malina asked, "Hey Christina, thank you so much for your awesome music. Of course, I found you because of your fan songs for Life is Strange. But your originals are also fantastic. The newest one, Sharks, has to be one of my very favorite songs of 2022. So first question, or the first question from Malina is, you are mostly self-taught, or if you have any educational background in music theory, instruments, etc.
First of all, thank you so much for that, for the lovely question, for the lovely note. Like that makes me feel really good, and I very much appreciate that. In terms of my music sort of education, I would say that I'm mostly self-taught, um, with kind of the one exception being that when I was in college, I majored in computer science, and then my minor was in audio technology or music technology or something like that. And so that
Mm-hmm.
definitely helped me get a leg up in starting to record myself in my apartment at the time. So I kind of had a sense of like, okay, I need to buy an audio interface and a microphone, and this is like the fundamentals of how to sort of mix. This is what a compressor does, that sort of thing. That was kind of a formal education. I took guitar lessons for about a year when I was 8. I've
Mm-hmm.
taken singing lessons on and off a few times in my adult life, which has been really helpful. Lots of like YouTube videos and learning from people on YouTube. I've taken some classes on this platform that used to be called Monthly, and now it's called Studio, and I really got a lot out of those as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that's mostly it. I would say like yeah, I don't know a lot of music theory, and I certainly don't have it kind of at my disposal easily. So it's like I can usually figure stuff out if I sit down and think about it, but I'm not good at being like, this is what this chord is. I never know what key my songs are in. That is like a constant frustration of mine sometimes when I'm trying to add different parts, especially with MIDI. And I'm like, what key is this in? I don't know. How can I figure this out? So yeah, a lot of it is really just is kind of what I'm feeling and that sort of thing.
So I think you're playing the guitar and the keyboard. I have no idea about. Sorry if I sound maybe a little bit, but I have no anything about music. So you're playing the keyboard and the guitar, or is there anything else?
Yeah, no, and it's not surprising if that's confusing because I sort of do everything in my song. So I do all the
Yeah, yeah,
production
yeah.
myself. In terms of like what I can actually play, like if you were here and I was gonna like play a
Mm-hmm.
song for you, I play the guitar. That's the
Uh-huh.
instrument that I can actually play. I have like I can't really play the piano. Like I know a little bit. I know some chords. Um
Mm-hmm.
I did buy like a pretty nice digital piano a year or two ago,
Mm-hmm.
and I tried to learn this really complicated song, and I got pretty decent at it, but that's sort of my piano skills. I took drum
Mm-hmm.
lessons for a little while as well.
Okay.
So yeah, but most of the stuff that I do, a lot of it is like virtual instruments in the DAW,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
or sometimes like if I'm playing, I can also kind of play the bass a little bit
Mm-hmm.
because it's sort of like a guitar. um,
Okay. Mm-hmm.
but yeah, a lot of it is just kind of things that I do directly in the software.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So the second question from Malina is, how do you go about songwriting? What gets you started? Are the lyrics there first, then the instrumental parts, or maybe you just have an idea or feeling you want to put into a song? Thank you, and despite your hiatus, I hope we hear from you.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, and it's an interesting question. I think it's different for different
Mm-hmm.
people, and it's also different for different songs. So, I would
Mm-hmm.
say for me, like the majority of the time, it'll it'll either be something that I'm kind of thinking about, like I'm literally just like laying in bed thinking about something, feeling something, or I'm a lot of times in the shower I'll get an idea, but still kind of like thinking about something, and I'll get in my head a single sort of like lyric that has a melody attached to it. It's like a little phrase, and often that will be the start of a song for me. Like maybe that'll be the first line of the song. Maybe that's the first line of a chorus. Maybe it's just kind of it goes somewhere important in a song. Like this is the example that comes to mind right now is I have this song called The Place Where I Drown. And for that one, I just had this idea like, don't let me be drawn to the place where I drown. And I had that line, and I actually I wrote it down just as it was and recorded a little voice memo of me like singing it. And then like months later, I kind of found like it fits something that I was like thinking about, and then it kind of was like the song was born from that. That is probably the majority of my songs, but not always. I mean, sometimes I will be just kind of noodling around on the guitar, and I'll find a guitar riff that I really like. I think like my song Because I Tried, I think that's what that one was, is I was just, that sort of guitar part in it is the first thing that I came up with. And so usually it's something that I feel really inspired by, and it can be different things. I think for other people it can be like drums. Like a lot of people start with drums, and I'm so bad at drums. To this day, I am trying to get better at drums. Like literally like yesterday, I was trying to, kind of start with drums and get better at drums and have a better beat, for my songs. And I think that I tend to get much more inspired by like the emotions behind it, a really interesting perspective, a really interesting way of saying something. So that's probably why most of my songs come from that.
I think you already answered it, but when did you start writing Life is Strange music? So was this one start where you said you made this video when you choose Bay over Bay?
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, and I think, because I played the game after all the episodes had come out, I played the game in like a matter of days, probably like 3 or 4 days when we played the game.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So yeah, and then that song actually I didn't write it at that time. It was more like a repurposed song. So I Still Do was a song I had written in, I don't know, 2013 or something like that, about something else. It was about this girl that broke up with me, and I don't know, it was just like a bad relationship. And there were a lot of lines in that song that really reminded me of Life is Strange and how I felt in Life is Strange. Like some of the lines changed, but a lot of them didn't. And that was kind of a cool thing about it. So I was able to use a lot of that song as it was, and then just like adjust some of the lines to fit Life is Strange better. And then that's kind of what I did.
I think we come to your some of your projects. I know we come later, but when you have to look back, what were your major heartfelt projects over time? Liz, and maybe not Life is Strange related.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I mean, definitely a lot of my Life is Strange music, I kind of see as like I see that as sort of an era that I had where I went by Riley Hawke for a lot of it. That was kind of its own era, and might consider that kind of a heartfelt project. Definitely the EP itself was something that I'd never done before. I'd written a lot of music. I'd released a lot of music kind of on YouTube, but that was sort of the first time I was like, well, maybe I can like clean this up a little bit, make it sound more in the realm of something that was professionally done, and release it on digital platforms. It can be on Spotify, it can be on Apple Music and all that stuff. And being able to kind of have that collection, and I made the album art for it, and I picked an ordering for the tracks, and I kind of got it mastered by the same person, so it would sound more cohesive. So that was definitely a really important project for me. I'm trying to think prior to that if there was anything like, I would say prior to that it was a lot more of kind of ad hoc songs. The other one that comes to mind is my poetry EP. It's
okay.
That to me is one of the coolest projects I've ever done, and it's one of my favorites. that, and it is poetry. One of them is a little bit more of a rap, the way that I did it, and it's poetry that I wrote years ago,
Yeah.
8 years ago or something. And I thought it would be really cool if I basically scored it, right? So I had these poems, I recited them, and then I was like, okay, what music would fit nicely behind this poem? And there's four on there, and some of them are more challenging than others. I think Stockholm Syndrome was the most challenging one to kind of get right, but I'm also really happy with how it turned out. And I did just very different styles. I mean, some of these, like Stockholm Syndrome is kind of a dark, brooding, kind of electric guitar, gritty kind of thing. And then there's The Throne, which is like orchestral and has this, just every time I listen to it, I cheer a little bit at the end, because there's just this crescendo of like hope and caring and all this at the end. And, I love how that turned out as well. So those poems were like, they were really important to me. I really liked them, and I wanted to create something that I felt like was just very authentic and expressive and beautiful. And so that's a project I'm really proud of.
I have to admit, that's really cool projects you made. Yeah. So when we talk about now, do you want to tell us about your current projects?
Well, I would. I can't say that I have any current projects. I've been writing a lot. I have a lot of songs that are either half recorded or I didn't even start recording or whatnot. And I like them, and part of me really wants to kind of finish and release them. But I think I've been going through a lot of changes kind of in my life, and feeling some stuckness, some blockedness. I've really been struggling with creating things and finding that motivation. And so I highly suspect there will be more, maybe even soon, more projects to come. I've always been an artist. I'm always going to be an artist. I look forward to seeing what I create. At this, but at this moment in time, like I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do next.
Yeah, that's absolutely okay. So I'm no artist, but I know what you mean. I get a glimpse when I try to write fan fiction. For the first time, it was really easy, but I think I'm not what it's called. It's called, I think, writer's block or anything. So you want to put something you want to make it, finish it, and I think that can be really hard because I'm not sure what's behind it. As you said, it can be changes in your life and emotional state and so many things which can be influenced by that. And yeah, I totally understand that. So we are there and we will wait for you. And I think we will be amazed of your new project. So
thank you.
Of course. So no worry. You told a little bit about it, that you made, I think, this big project with an EP and publishing it on Spotify and so on. And I have to ask it so you can answer or not if it's okay for you. So making money with music, I think, is not easy. And so how was it for you? And if you want to talk about it, how is it for you making music of it, making money from music?
Yeah, I don't make money from music. And in terms of that EP, like I spent more money making the EP than I made from the EP, which is fine. I'm a software engineer. I have other ways of making money. That's absolutely fine. But just to say that it's not something that I do for money, and I definitely, I kind of wanted to. I sort of, I didn't go all in and really, really try. I have a hard time, I think, with the marketing aspect of it. There's something that is just so difficult for me, I think, to like ask people to buy things, try to get attention, try to compete. I'm really not a competitive person in general. I really prefer to collaborate, and so I really struggle with that. I think that if I were to succeed in more of a music business kind of sense where I am making money, where I do have a large enough kind of following that I was able to sell things, maybe able to have a tour, that kind of thing. I really think that, either I would need to change quite a bit or grow quite a bit, or I would need to work with somebody, that's their wheelhouse, and I can continue to be an artist, and somebody else can help me kind of navigate these things that are really difficult for me.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's, as you said, it's good that you have your job as a software engineer. So that's where you make money from, and that you can make, when your heartfelt projects you make, and you don't have the. Yeah, I think it would be the same for me. So I'm not sure if I would be able to, as you said, compete or survive in this music business. I think that's not easy. Yeah. So it's good that we have your music and we can enjoy it. So it's also good for us. So are there any limitations or no-goes for you? I think when you write music or when you write poems, or like specific themes, etc.
Themes wise, I don't have any particular like objections or limits that I will like purposefully place on myself. One thing I do notice, which is maybe also something that holds me back, an area to kind of grow, is that I feel I struggle to do anything that doesn't feel very authentic, and even to the point of like there's a lot of music out there, especially in certain genres, that is very kind of combative, or blaming somebody, putting somebody else down, that sort of thing. And that's hard for me. Like sometimes I'll start to maybe write some of that, and then I'll be like, no, like you can't do that, And I don't know. That's kind of like that you could maybe say is a limitation, is that it's like my music always needs to have sort of groundedness in it, this sort of love in it, that kind of, I don't know, this very realness to it. And this comes from me, like as a person, like I really kind of, I can't help but exist at this sort of grounded, real kind of level where there's lots of different complex emotions, and it can be hard to figure out what is the right thing to do, or places where you do kind of have more of an us versus them mentality. That's like it's just very counter to my nature. So that's something I find in a lot of my music, is that I have and it makes it hard for me to write music that's kind of like lighthearted, or sort of like surface level, more like surface level, like, oh yeah, we can all like relate to this on a surface level and feel good and have a good time or whatever. That's kind of tough for me, because I think I use music, writing music, creating art in general, to help me like become more grounded in truth. And so it does lend itself, I think, to my music having a certain like inherent like vibe to it, a theme to it that I've never deviated much from, and that I find it difficult. Like there have been at least one time I can think of that I was kind of trying to collaborate with somebody on something, and they wanted like something different, and I was really trying to do this like different kind of style that was more what they were looking for, and I really struggled with it, and ultimately couldn't do it, and they had to work with somebody else. And so so when you ask about like limitations, it's nothing that I'm like putting there as a wall, but more so that my music does have some cohesiveness to it that I don't break out of too much.
Yeah, but I think that's fine. I have to say, cannot speak for all people who are fans of your music. So, but I think that's what people like about you, is that you, this groundedness, this inherent, that what you are singing about is real, and no, as you said, no, maybe not lighthearted, but Yeah, I think people like that. For me, it's so that's what I like about your music.
Oh, that's good to hear.
So it's so it's not a real limitation, I would say.
It's me. Yeah, it's kind of an interesting question. It's like I can't write something that's not me, and I am not
Yeah.
I'm not everything. I'm just me. So I also, I like that comes through in my music as well.
Is there then a dream you have, what you would like to compose or whom you would like to work with?
So I'm very into, like I mentioned, like kind of like lesbian media, and one of the things I really like is certain like lesbian web series. It's a bit of a dream. Like I would like to be able to score for like a lesbian web series or do music for that, or even get involved in like the filming process in some way. I think that would be really fun. Even like writing something, producing something. I don't know if I'll ever get an opportunity to, or if I'll, well, that's a fairly passive way of looking at it. But if I'll ever, kind of decide to make something like that happen. But that's something I think about sometimes. And yeah, I've had dreams kind of over the years of having more of a music career than I do. Maybe something where I don't have a separate job. Maybe that's what I do. And it's never been something, I guess, that I've taken seriously enough to really decide to make it happen. It's something in the back of my head once in a while of like, what could I do with this? Definitely and something that I do kind of constantly work towards is I definitely do want to continue to improve my craft. So I want to get better at everything. I want to get better at singing. I want to get better at playing guitar and producing and mixing and everything that kind of goes into making a song. I think more so than the reception of my music, I want to feel very proud of my music. I want to be able to look back and feel proud of my portfolio and what I've done and what I've expressed. I think that's one of the most rewarding parts of it.
And I think you can be proud, but this is only my little opinion here.
Yeah. Well, it's a lifelong thing. There's this fun fact that I remember from a little book. I don't even know if I read it or someone else read it and told me, but I think it was about Picasso. And when he died, he had an unfinished painting on his easel. And I love that. I think about that a lot. And it's, you're never going to be done. You're never going to be fully satisfied. And that's okay. It's really beautiful, I think.
Yeah, that's also one thing I had to learn to let go. And I think a lot of people if you want to make it perfect, and if you're a perfectionist, then maybe it comes not in handy. So you always want to, I'm not sure if it's with you or with music. So I think there are always tweaks, and you can tweak a little bit there, and you can maybe, that's not perfect. So I think it's not easy for music artists also, I think.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And there's probably you could probably like pick out most of my songs and I'd be able to find something in it that like continually bothers me to this day. Although interestingly, there's also a lot of cases where when I like finish the song and release it, there's so many things that bother me about it. And then I go back and listen to it like 2 years later and I'm like, oh, this is a great song. Like it's like I can have like a new appreciation for it once I have that distance and I'm not so like involved in all the tiny details and all the tiny criticisms and everything. I can be like, oh man, like this is actually good.
Yeah, but it's a cool way to do it. So
yeah.
Cool. Coming to your Life is Strange projects over time, I think one of the first, as you said, I still do. You already answered the question, I think. I have this question. Maybe you want to talk about it. As you said, you are writing music or uploading videos on YouTube for a very, very long time. I think it's 15 years. I'm not sure. So it's a very long time, isn't it?
Yep.
So as I just found out that I think before you uploaded I Still Do, there was just a gap between 2 years. So if you want to talk about it, why you didn't upload in this time?
Yes, I do. It's because I was really happy. It's true. No, so this was a period of time. So I had so when I was uploading before so some of the last videos that I uploaded, I was like had gone through this really terrible breakup. I was really in a bad place, and then I met someone who became my wife. And so during that time that I wasn't uploading, it's because I was dating her and then marrying her and then being happy living with her. And I didn't feel like it felt like a nice break. I had never been so happy in my life. And I think that I use music mostly to deal with difficult emotions. So I think that during that period of time, I was just enjoying my life and taking a break from the heavy emotions.
That's absolutely
Yep.
okay. So yeah, okay. I was just curious. Okay, yeah, that's a good reason to
Yeah, I think so.
pause. Yeah, okay. Of course, there's All That Matters. For me, one of the most iconic songs. I also use it in my podcast. Thanks very much for
Yeah, of course.
I think in the description I read there was a hint to a Kothi song, but what exactly is behind All That Matters?
And All That Matters, I think I don't know if there was a Kothi song. I'd be curious what you read there.
Maybe I maybe I'm not
Or
sure.
maybe I forgot. I don't know. But what was behind it, I think, was really that I wanted to do something that was like I Still Do was totally about the ending where you choose to save Arcadia Bay. From the song to the video, it's very clear that's what was going on. And I think that I wanted to write a song from the perspective of choosing to save Chloe over Arcadia Bay. And that was important for me because I knew that lots of people chose that ending, and I wanted to really understand like what I would need to be feeling in order to choose that ending and what makes that ending valid and understandable and a good choice, like what makes that ending a good choice. Because I think when I chose to save Arcadia Bay, for me, it was very like inevitable. I'm like, oh, of course, they've set this whole thing up. Like you have to let go, you have to make the hard choice. And I wanted to kind of get out of that headspace and kind of challenge myself to be able to be like, okay, like, let's say we save Chloe. Like, what makes that a good choice? And that's kind of where that song came from.
So I think it was not a Kothi song. I think it was the time you found out about the fandom that there are also other artists making fan music. Maybe that was the case. I'm not sure. But maybe I mixed up descriptions of YouTube videos.
I mean, it was after I uploaded I Still Do that I discovered that there were other artists. And I think this was a long time ago. I think I remember like
no problem.
I think I remember like Kothi reaching out about I Still Do maybe and saying something nice about it, and that felt really good as well. And I definitely I know that I was communicating with him during this time and that he gave me some advice for this song. So it's possible I wrote something about that because I was really in awe of what he could do. I definitely used him as sort of a role model and someone that I aspired to be more like because I saw his productions and I'm like, wow, like this is really good. I can't do anything like this. Like if you look at I Still Do, that's a very basic production. It's got like a guitar. I think I added, I don't know, there might be maybe some keyboards. There's like a kick drum. I just added a few extra elements, because I had no clue. I had no clue about production at that time. So I remember asking him like, hey man, like how do you do all this? And he definitely like gave me some tips and so it's maybe I said that somewhere.
But I think you can be proud of your songs. Nevertheless, I think it's not needed to have a complex or much instruments or I don't know. So I think it doesn't matter. But of course, I can imagine how it is to produce your first, or not first song, but your first Life is Strange song. So yeah. But that this comes in handy, as you say, you are Kothi. I congratulate you to your song. So I think there was this web video series Fighting Arcadia Bay. I think both of you were in them. Kothi, I think also.
Yeah, we live actually not super far. So when he made that trip, it was kind of like coming to the Cleveland area, the greater Cleveland area, and was able to do that at the same time. So yeah, that was cool.
So how did you feel being interviewed and be part of the community, and that all the people, he made the trip to visit all you and Kothi and some other artists?
Yeah, it was awesome. It was very I was super flattered, really, that he'd want to come talk to me, and meeting him and his wife was lovely. They were really lovely people, and kind of setting up to do the filming. It was all very, very thoughtful, kind of thoughtfully well done, and I loved watching the finished product. And that's part of what I was talking about it with the fandom in general, is just the passion, the effort, the dedication. It's really inspiring.
Coming to another project, I think it's as you mentioned it before, so maybe you would tell about it, how it comes in handy that you're a software engineer. So by Overexposed, I think I would describe it as an RPG self-made video game. I think you have put a lot of love and effort into that game, or this not game, but you cannot play it. But
You cannot play it. That's right.
so, so what inspired you, and how was it to make?
What inspired me? So that song Overexposed was something that I wrote for a visual novel. I don't know if that got completed. Actually, it was by Destiny Smasher, and it was based on a fan fiction called All Wounds, which I had read. Yeah, and I think I kind of got wind of the visual novel. At some point, I kind of reached out and I was like, "Hey, do you want some music for this?" I think that's what happened, and we communicated, and I wrote Overexposed, and the song itself took a while. There's a lot going on in that song, and I had to find somebody to kind of do the duet with me. I got Dakota Crespo, who is and so that she's a really great singer. I was really happy to have her on the track. And in terms of the video, I think that's partially what inspired that style. Like I don't remember like how this got into my head, because it was very ambitious, and I definitely remember thinking, "Oh, this will take me a couple days," and it took me like 2 solid weeks. Like I spent so much time making this. Everything was way harder than I was expecting it to be, but it was also really fun, and I love how it turned out. But I think so in that fic, in that kind of story, the Destiny Smasher wrote, there's a lot of references to like video games and retro gaming and that sort of thing. So that could be partially where I got that from. And then a lot of what happens in the video is things that are meant to at least thematically represent things that are kind of happening in the story for those characters. So yeah, but it was, and I do this sometimes. I will sometimes get an idea and I'll be like, I'll really latch onto it, and then I'll start to work on it, and it'll just blow up. It'll balloon. It'll take way longer than I thought. And so that's kind of what this was. But yeah, no, it's super cool.
Turned out very, very cool.
Yeah.
I know what you mean when you have that. I know that for me as an autistic person, I also have this special interests, and sometimes you get an idea and then you go so deep into this rabbit hole that you can go lost. And but I think you really did it a great job.
Thank you.
With this video. Yeah. I think, you mentioned it already, the EP Fragile Reality. As you said, this is a milestone for you, of course. And yeah, as you said, you put a lot of work and thought into the EP. Yeah, you want to add anything to the process and what changed for you during that making of the EP?
Yeah, so these songs, I think all of the songs had already been released on YouTube before I put out the EP. So what I went back and did is my thought was like, okay, like how can I make this sound like more professional? So I went back, I actually reproduced Fragile Reality. I know some people preferred the original version to the new one, but I did that.
Okay.
And I went back and I kind of added some instruments to different tracks, tried to add some better drums, or just sort of like clean things up where I could. And then this is the part that was expensive about it, really, is that I paid somebody to do the mixing and the mastering for the EP. And I didn't like that process, and I think that's why I kind of doubled down on being able to do more mixing post the EP. So everything after my EP was mixed by me, because it was a really frustrating kind of process. Like, I think that art can be something that's very important to us. Like, I felt very close to those songs. And so, when he would send me something back that was just like not at all what I had in mind, I felt really like misunderstood, misinterpreted, and it was really kind of a difficult process. So, but it was also a good learning experience. I'm glad to have kind of had that experience, and got to do album art, which was just like it was fun. We set up. We bought like, I think I bought like those like bracelets like Max has, and so it's my wife and I's hands, and it was really fun. I love doing the album art for everything. I love doing photo shoots. I love just coming up with concepts and then going into Photoshop and adding stuff. Like, really fun.
Yeah, that's really nice. Yeah. I think you made, not sure when you made it. It's called Wastelands. I think it was when Before the Storm comes out, or when you played Before the Storm.
Yeah, I think after episode 1 probably is when I wrote that. Yeah. Oh yeah, the next game I played as the episodes were coming out. I did not wait for that one. I was hyped.
For sure. And what I found out is that what I found fascinating is that I think it's one of the most played of your songs on Spotify, Wasteland. So why do you think so?
Yeah, so that I know exactly why that is. It's because the Life is like the official Life is Strange page, social media channels and everything, they shared that song.
Okay.
That's why it has so many views. And I had been in touch with them a little bit, like sometimes submitting things like, hey, I made this, would you share this? And that was the song where they were like, yeah, we'll share this. So that got a lot of
cool. Okay.
A lot of traffic, and I love that happened. That was a really cool moment for me.
Yeah, okay, I can imagine. It was too early for me because I got, I think, 2019 into the fandom. So I think I played everything later, so in one go. But now I understand. Yeah. Also a very cool.
Oh, thank you.
Song, I think it fits very good the emotions and from Before the Storm. Even if some people don't like Before the Storm, but that's also another topic.
Yeah.
I think, we come to the newer projects of yours. I think Impossible and the poetry you already talked about. Is this the time where you switch, as you told us, I think you mentioned it already, is this the time when you switch from Riley Hawke to Cristina Hawke?
Yeah, I think, what did I say? So I do have a video on YouTube called Retrospective on Riley Hawke, where I kind of go into why I made that switch and everything. And I think it was right around when I released Impossible. That might have been my first song where I was Cristina Hawke. Yeah,
I think I watched this retrospective video as you mentioned, but I have to admit it was also a long time ago. I haven't rewatched it. Okay, I can remember. Okay, so if you want to just refresh my memory, why was you changing your artist name?
So there were maybe a couple reasons for that. The first one being that I wanted to make a shift, because I think when I was doing like the Riley Hawke era, that was me making an attempt to put myself out there more and maybe have some more like, monetary success or grow my audience and that kind of thing. I was pretty focused on building an audience and trying to find that balance between like what I wanted to make and what I thought other people would want to listen to. And so, obviously continuing to make Life is Strange songs where that made sense, but also kind of branching into other fandoms as well that I also authentically loved. Like I made a couple songs for like The Last of Us. I did one for Red Dead Redemption. I have the song on my EP that's about Klexa from the 100. I think I did a 13 Reasons Why. So just sort of trying to branch out, but sort of brand myself as somebody who's like a fan creator and making these heartfelt songs about shows and games and that kind of thing that people like. And I sort of just decided to stop trying to do that and focus instead on doing things that were, purely authentic to me and what I wanted to write about, or directions I wanted to grow in, or styles I wanted to explore. And so kind of changing my name at that moment in time was like a sort of bringing into reality this shift that I was feeling, and kind of marking it and being like, okay, this is the moment I stopped kind of trying to have a career in music. And then the other reason I'd say is just a very like simple kind of practical reason, is that people were calling me Riley, and that's not my name. And I would still sign emails as Cristina, and I would still be like, wait, who is that? Or like, it was a little bit confusing to me. So I'm like, I'll keep the Hawke part. I like that my sort of real name is separated from my artist name, at least a little bit, but I'm gonna be Cristina because that's me.
Yeah, I understand. No, that makes sense. Yeah, yeah. I also like the Cristina. I have to admit.
Oh yeah.
So
it's my name.
So I think as an artist, of course, the name, of course, also. But I think your songs are more. How can I say that? So they are very, as you say, very personal. They are very, very you. I think, and I don't know you, but it feels so, and makes absolutely sense. Okay, one of my favorites. I think I already said so, or it's hurt me and she ruined me. I think as one can say that, because I think the songs are also very, I'm not sure how to phrase it positively. So I think there's a lot of people get these feelings or get this over time or in their life, as what you also get in expressed in these songs. So I think a lot of people can relate to that. So if you look at these songs now, how was it for you to write these songs or get this out?
It was good. I think I really go through a similar process kind of whenever I write a song. So even with like my Life is Strange songs, I always made sure to find something that I could authentically relate to. Like, how do I relate to this character? How would I feel if I were doing these things? Or what do I think the motivation was, based on my experiences, that kind of thing. And so I think that it wasn't like super different necessarily. Like, I think that obviously, the songs are about maybe different things. They're about more kind of personal things. The process was pretty similar. And I think I'll also say, like, on that note, like, about maybe not being able to spin positive feelings out of it, but that I think my like biggest passion and calling as like an artist, and even as a human being in a lot of ways, is to help people feel more kind of comfortable with the things that nobody talks about. Those sort of feelings that, like, as a society, we've been taught to be ashamed of, we've been taught to not speak of, but that we all feel. And something that I find just like so incredibly meaningful, to be able to delve into those feelings myself, to find some way to not be ashamed of them myself, and then to share them and say, like, hey, like, if you feel this way, like, so do I. Like, that's valid. It's okay. We're humans. And so I think, I don't know if that kind of speaks to what you're thinking of for some of these other songs, but that's something that is so important to me.
Yeah, it's also, I think I don't know what it's called. I think it's agency, so that you still maybe mourn, or so but you still have this energy and looking forward and getting maybe not good parts out of it, but dealing with it.
I think like a sort of hope, a sort of optimism, and I think that is something that is a little bit subtle or a little bit hard to understand sometimes, but that, because I experience a lot of negative emotions in my life. I put a lot of negative emotions into my songs. But I'm not an unhappy person. You know, I'm very optimistic. I find there to be love in all sorts of things. I think that we can love. I think that we can overcome things. I think we can be courageous and brave and bold and learn to be ourselves and overcome these things. But not if we don't talk about them, you know, not if we're not willing to engage with them. And so I think that that's something that might get misunderstood sometimes if someone's just listening to a song that's, you know, seems like, oh gosh, this, you know, and like, honestly, like my dad has even said this to me about like, you know, oh, your songs are they're so depressing or they're so kind of negative. And I'm like, no, they're real, you know, and I don't feel negatively about them. I just feel like it's real and it's worth expressing and worth shedding light on.
Yeah, absolutely. So I only can assure you that your songs, as you said, sometimes I also have it that you maybe it's not the right time to listen to one of your songs. That's okay. But when I listen to them, it's also, as you said, the part that makes you see the future. And yeah, that shows a lot in your song.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. I think we talked a little bit about the community part. I'm not sure, because I only see some comments on YouTube, I think. How is the community doing in general? So is there feedback from the community to you?
You mean like the Life is Strange community or people who listen to my music?
Aside from Life is Strange also, yeah?
Not too much. Yeah, I think, you know, if you see the comments that I get on YouTube, I'll occasionally have people reach out, but yeah, no, that's kind of it.
But I found sometimes I found it frustrating. Maybe it's not sure if it's but you, because I see so much good fan art or good music videos and so on. And sometimes, yeah, it's hard to see that this is not not the attention it maybe should have. So maybe that's part of the internet or part of the social media. So some people get a lot of attention and most of the people don't get any or very little attention. So sometimes that frustrates me a lot. So I would say, why is this person not getting much more attention or is doing music for, as you said, what you wish? So is doing for a game or whatever. So
yeah, I mean, I think that you have to try for that in particular. You know, I think that you can make music, and that's kind of what my focus is on the art, making music, release it. I love it when I can share it with other people and being able to have that interaction and connection. But I think that if your goal is to have a large audience, like you have to work on that aspect of it. You have to be really good with what you choose to make, your schedule that you choose to make it on, your titles, your thumbnails, your, you know, SEO, your tags. Like it's a whole thing, and I have you know, educated myself about it to a degree, but I've never fully bought in and like played that game. So I really think that has quite a lot to do with it.
Talking about music community, or maybe you are in the music community, I'm not sure. Are there any other artists you maybe want to drop some names of them, or maybe some you think should promote it or you would work with?
Oh, I mean, I do really like collaborating with other artists, and I kind of have over the years, not so much recently. I don't know that anyone comes to mind too much. You know, except like if, but I do like working with people. I would do more of that in the future.
Yeah, but as you said, it's maybe not so easy first to get on the same page, and I can only imagine it's not so easy to get a project working. Yeah, but I wish for you that you may find some.
I would like that. I think I need to put more effort into that. Kind of get more serious about it if that's something I want to make happen. Because I mean, I think it is. It's just, it's kind of, it's hard sometimes not to get discouraged, you know, because it is like you say that it's not always going to work out. It's like, you know, like having chemistry with somebody in different areas. Like, do you have artistic chemistry? Can you see eye to eye? Is it a good fit? And you kind of have to like, you kind of have to suffer through a lot of bad fits to find like a good one or a couple good ones, you know? And I think it's worth it, but I do sometimes struggle with the discouragement. Maybe I will put more effort into that at some point.
also costs a lot of energy, I think. Yeah, but I think we talked already about the feedback from the community. I think, yeah, sure. On YouTube, I think there's mostly positive feedback I saw there, or I think only positive feedback. How's the feedback then that you get maybe personally or not on social media?
Oh, I very often, I mean, nobody's gonna really tell you like that they don't like your music. Like I've had some really nice experiences of people hearing my music and being like, wow, this is good, and that's probably mostly kind of the reaction that I get. Yeah, no, I do. I usually get positive feedback on my music when I share it with people.
Sometimes I ask these questions. I sometimes throw a critical eye on Life is Strange. I think not everything is perfect in Life is Strange. Think about Life is Strange when you look at it. Do you think there were topics missing or could have been developed in more?
Oh man. So you say it's not perfect, but like I played it years ago. So in my mind's eye, it is perfect.
Yeah, sure.
No, I mean I know it wasn't perfect. But yeah, topics and stuff. I don't know. I mean, they did a lot. It's hard to criticize because you can always criticize what they didn't do, but they did so much. And I think it's great to focus on that. And I really have a lot of I have criticism for some of the other games for sure, but I don't have a lot of criticism about the original. I know some people didn't like the ending. They thought it was predictable. I think that the fan community had a chance between episodes to kind of theorize what was going to happen. I think a lot of people predicted it and was like, oh, they're going to do this. But I played it in a few days. So I didn't have time to anticipate the ending. I was surprised. I thought it was awesome. I thought it was very emotional. I loved the themes. I don't really have anything bad to say about the first Life is Strange.
Absolutely. Okay. What I later thought about is what they also changed with the others now is that most of the persons were white in the first game. There were missing some maybe people of color. But I think we have this with Life is Strange 2 and with True Colors now. So I think, yeah, but sure, there's nothing perfect. And I think they did a really good job for, as you said.
Yeah. And I think sometimes with stuff like diversity, you have to give credit for improvements. Just because we have certain maybe standards today doesn't mean you can go throughout all of history and be like, oh, they should. It's like you have to take that into account. And I think that trying to do something positive and different for the time that you're in is very commendable. And then maybe taking more and more steps as you kind of continue, you can iterate on it. So I personally wouldn't even criticize it for that because I think it did a lot of things and it was able, the company and, we're able to iterate and kind of continue to improve.
Talking about the other games, I'm not sure if you played all the games. You said you've played Before the Storm. Did you play Life is Strange 2 and True Colors?
Yep. Yeah, I played all of them.
Ah, okay. Okay. So I have to ask that you don't need to answer that. So what did you like? What games in the series do you like the most? Or maybe you don't have to answer that, but maybe you can say what you like the most in all of the games.
Yeah, I definitely liked Before the Storm. I think I don't remember all the details. I remember I was really disappointed by the third episode. But that episodes 1 and especially episode 2, I really loved those. And then Life is Strange 2, I was sort of lukewarm on. I think I enjoyed it, but it was not special to me like the first game was. It just didn't suck me in as much, and it didn't have it was a pretty good game. I enjoyed it, but didn't love it. And then True Colors I liked quite a bit. I enjoyed that one a lot. And it was great. I mean, they had that's in a way that's my dream superpower is to be, because I just I'm so about feelings and kind of connecting with people over feelings and all this. So there was that scene where Alex was had to kind of figure out how Steph was feeling and then make her feel better. I'm this is my dream. I literally screamed that in my living room when that scene came on. So that game was kind of special to me in that way, just because I loved the superpower.
I think with Life is Strange 2 is you need to have maybe a special connection, because my connection was because my eldest son and my youngest daughter were about the age of Sean and Daniel. Took me there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, that's cool that you had that connection. I think that does help. Like I think I've mentioned, like one of the reasons I like Life is Strange so much is because it featured this sort of romantic connection between girls, and I could relate to that, So I think that's wonderful to be able to connect with it.
Think of Life is Strange as an impact on the gamers community. So do you think Life is Strange had or will have an impact on the gamers community as a whole?
I think that it did. I mean, it was a bit of a it was a bit of a hit, It was like kind of more of an indie game, but it was like it was really popular, and I think that like that sort of storytelling, we're seeing it more. I mean, there's Don't Nod, and then there's like Deck 9. I'm not like super plugged into kind of gaming, and I do play, like I play a lot of PS4 games mostly. But I think that kind of having that boldness, like I was talking about earlier, to delve into some of these like heavy topics and do this really, really good like cinematic kind of storytelling, and realizing like how much that connects with people. I think that kind of opened a door for other companies to maybe see like, wow, like people really like this kind of stuff. Where else can we take it? What other stories can we tell in a similar way? And I hope we see more games, continue to come out that are kind of in that style.
I have to admit that I don't play a lot of games, and I haven't played before Life is Strange for a long time. So I think it was the first game. Mostly I don't like competitive games, so it was the first game which took me because, as you said, deals with real life topics. That's taboos, and also I think the queer community, as you said, it was one of the first games who explicitly, or maybe not explicitly, but put this with the two protagonists in front of the storyline.
It was explicit. They kissed at the end of my game. Did they not kiss at the end of your game?
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah, and that's what I like about the fandom and the fan fiction. It's so great to see all these topics, from trans to non-binary so it's absolutely consent. I was overwhelmed by the queer community making great stories in the fanfic.
Yeah, I mean, like representation is still like it's way better. Like, and it's like it's not that bad. I don't know. It's hard to say, I guess, but relatively speaking, it's getting way better. Still in video games, like not a ton. So I think Life is Strange was really special in that way.
We talked, I think, a bit about it, about your future plans and projects. Are there any other topics you want to focus on in the future you want to share?
I think that I'll probably continue to write music that's kind of personal to what I'm going through at the time. May explore different styles. Like I said, I'm going through some kind of changes, it feels like right now, and I think it can be really important to give yourself the space and the permission to change. And that can be hard for me, because sometimes I get really attached to certain aspects of my personality or certain ways that I've expressed myself, like how my music sounds and all that. And it can be kind of, it's really hard sometimes to like let go of that and see what comes next. But that's sort of where I am right now. So it's hard. I'm really kind of not committing to too much, and being able to kind of see where things take me. So but for sure, like my heartfelt intention and wish is for me to continue to discover more like authenticity and expressiveness and joy, I think, in being who I am, and finding my voice and kind of creating things that are true and low and abundance, and just like, I don't know. I do have some perfectionism, really, like we mentioned earlier, and I want to be more I want to be more free, I want to feel less self-conscious. I want to feel less shame. So I'm kind of hoping and intending for my future art and music to be like, to kind of just keep discovering what that is and let it freely kind of come out and stuff. So I don't know what that means exactly, but that's kind of my intention right now.
Yeah, sounds great. So I think, as you said, it needs a lot of time. And as you said, letting go, that's also one of my problems. So one of the funny things was because I liked Life is Strange was because mostly of my life, I didn't make any choice. Not any choice, but I make choices, of course, but no willing big choices. So when I played Life is Strange, it was a life changer for me. So because I had to make choices in the game, and then after that, it pushed me to make changes for myself, not letting other people choose for me. So as you said, it's great that you took the time. Or I think everyone has absolutely okay that you do that for yourself. So
yeah.
So it's absolutely okay.
Yeah, that's really cool. By the way, I didn't know that so the way that Life is Strange kind of impacted you was in this way of feeling like you made. That's so cool. I'm really glad that connected with you.
Yeah, I was glad that the game was made such a way that I have infinite time. So I read that also about other people that normally you have this. I think it's in Before the Storm also. You have this real time part of making choices. So if you don't choose, then maybe in 5 seconds you will be killed, or there will be a choice made for you, or anything. And this was the first time I could pause the game for hours, and I can think about the choice, and there's no time limit. And that was for me absolutely game changer. Some people say, "Oh my God, that is so stupid." So that's not real life. So why do you play this game? So, but for me, it was real,
that's so cool.
real good. Yeah, I'm glad for that, Phil, and also for these moments of calm. I totally like these moments of calm. And
yeah, those are a winner.
And for me, as an autistic person, I needed these breaks. I think I can make a break in the game every time, but it was part of the game, so it was also very, very cool. I think, yeah. Most people don't recognize that, but but for me it was.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, I don't know that I would have recognized that either. I'm really glad that you shared that. It's really interesting.
So yeah, we're coming to the end of the episode of the podcast. Is there anything you want to say to the community? Maybe give advice for potential artists, or anything you want to share?
Yeah, I think I want to say just generally thank you. Like I mentioned earlier in the podcast, that was the part of this game for me that was life-changing, was being able to connect with so many more people over my art and kind of see that reception and feel that motivation and inspiration to keep making art. So that was very appreciated. And I think something else I would say is if anyone would ever want to, reach out and collaborate on a project, sometimes people will reach out for music for something like to use it on a podcast, or if you're making a video, or if you would like to work with me on music or anything, just I'm very friendly. Please reach out and we can chat about your project. I don't know that I have a lot of advice. Yeah, I don't know that I have advice, but that's probably what I have to say.
It's absolutely okay. Yeah, I can second that. So yeah, sure. If as I know you, you're a very welcoming person. So I think if there's anybody out there, as I said, my podcast is not that big. So, but maybe there comes an opportunity in the future. So yeah, I also want to say thanks to you and for being my podcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was nice talking to you. I hope we talk somewhere in the future. And of course, we will keep an eye out from new art from your side, of course. And yeah, take your time and we could talk in the future. Yeah, then thanks for being there, Cristina, and see you next time. Bye.
Yep. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Now for some news. On the Life is Strange fans Discord server, I came across the interactive quiz Who's Your Love match from the Liz universe by Playing with Heart. It's really fun and well thought out, and in the end you can date like one of about 30 characters from all of the Life is Strange games. Give it a try. It's on YouTube, a username Playing with Heart. The Wonder Twins published a new interactive movie, The Hope Circle, from their Kickstarter project, which also covers music from Cristina and Campusanes and much, much more. You can choose your path on YouTube or go to the more interactive Stornoway IO page. The details and dedication are priceless, sorry. And it's sometimes heartbreaking to go through all the choices. But in the end, sorry, but I will not spoil it. Better check it out for yourself. It's on Linktree, The Wonder Twins. An announcement on the Life is Strange Amber Alert Discord server really got me with a new trailer for their upcoming game. Check out their Discord. They also have a Linktree. It's Liz Amber Alert. And now for the final news. The Life is Strange fanzine Crossroads Volume 2 is out now, and all the additional items have been shipped. I have to admit that I haven't been reading through all of the signs so far. Check out their Twitter account if you missed the latest edition. I think they are retweeting some of the amazing art. It's on Twitter, @listscene. This episode will come to an end now. You can send in your questions you have via email, Twitter, or Discord to me. Of course, you can also send me wishes for future interviews and topics. I have to admit that I have some ideas for future interview guests and talk to some, but only the future will tell which one will come next. I also cannot guarantee for regular episode updates, and so I'm not sure when the next episode will air. It may be in June. So please keep an eye out on Twitter, YouTube, or your favorite podcatcher app for the Life After Bay podcast. By the way, please note that I have a separate Twitter handle @LifeAfterBayPod for my podcast now. So thanks for listening to my podcast and spread the word. See you soon in and around Arcadia Bay, Puerto Lobos, or Haven. Yours truly, Martin.